to navigate, and to be seen.
You're watching Rogers TV.
Welcome to our Meet the Candidates debate for the October 22nd municipal election in London. My name is Patrick Maloney, and I'm digital editor with the London Free Press. Thank you to the Aeolian Hall for having us here this evening, and to everyone who's joined us to watch this debate. Tonight we'll be hearing from the candidates in Wards 3 and Ward 4. Let's meet them now. Mo Salih, running in Ward 3. Jesse Helmer in Ward 4. Tricia Lister, Ward 4. Stephen Orser, Ward 4. And Connor Garrett, Ward 4. Organizers have asked me to note that 2 other candidates, one in each ward, declined the invitation to participate this evening. Here is the format. Bear with me while I consult my notes. I want to make sure I get this right. Each candidate will have 1 minute for an opening statement. Following that, we'll move through a series of key topics, and each candidate will have up to 2.5 minutes to present their thoughts on it. There will be no rebuttals, but I may cut in if the candidate is veering off topic. At the end of the allotted time, I'll notify you that your time is up. And at the end of the evening, we may take questions from the audience, or I may have some of my own, depending on how much time we have left. So with that said, let's start the opening statements. Numbers were drawn for order at the beginning, and we'll start with Ward 3 candidate Mo Salih.
It's really quiet. Well, thank you all for being here, and thank you for the organizers for this opportunity. It's really a privilege. I know over the past 4 years, I've had the honor of being the community voice and being a voice for our neighbors and pushing what is most important to them at City Hall and advocating on the issues that are important to them on every level, whether it's the federal partners or provincial partners, which is key, especially in today's climate, to ensure that we can continue to deliver results for the ward and for our city. I know I've also had the opportunity to work with many of my colleagues to push forward on a lot of important and key, whether it's from infrastructure or whether it's from the small things of ensuring that snow removal is done in a timely fashion throughout our city. I know I'm here today, and many of you are here today as well, I see in the audience, recognize that it's Eid, and it's a matter of having that commitment and showing up and being here at these important events, because I think it's important that the voters and the people of our city understand the issues that are important to them and have an opportunity here directly from their candidates. So it's really a privilege to be here before you. For me, it's been a matter of ensuring that red tape in City Hall sometimes get out of the way.
Thanks, Mo.
Thank you very much.
We'll call now on Ward 4 candidate Jesse Helmer.
Well, thanks very much, and thanks for being here tonight. I'm Jesse Helmer. I'm the councillor for Ward 4. And since I was elected almost 4 years ago, I've tried to work very hard every day to deliver meaningful and positive change for the people in the ward and also across the city. I think we've made good progress so far in the last few years on a couple of key things, making our property tax system fair for everybody, regardless of what kind of housing they live in. Giving people better mobility options, whether they're taking transit or they're driving, they're getting around on a bike or they're walking. We've built new sidewalks, we've resurfaced roads, we've delivered over $50 million in infrastructure projects here in Ward 4, which is unprecedented. And we've moved forward on a lot of important files. But there's a lot of work left to do. People really need affordable housing, they need better places to live, they need secure housing. And we have a lot of work in the city to do. Both here in Ward 4, there's a lot of very exciting things going on in Ward 4. Everyone who lives here knows how amazing of a ward it is, but we need to do more to make sure that it's a wonderful place for everyone.
Ward 4 candidate Tricia Lister.
My name is Tricia Lister. I've lived in East London for 34 of my 38 years. I attended public and most of my high school in Ward 4, and I'm a graduate of Western University. Back in the day, it was still good old UW to me. I'm a business owner with 24 staff who are mostly happy. I have a 3-year-old daughter, Allie, and parents named Jim and Joanne who still live in my childhood home. Growing up in East London, I'm too familiar with everyone's 3 favorite letters, EOA. The sentiment was then, and it still is now, that the east end of the city is often neglected in terms of services in favor of other wards. We all pay taxes. We still have streets without curbs in Ward 4 and streets which flood every time there's a substantial rainfall. I believe that we can and should expect more for Ward 4. Having a councillor you trust who is dedicated to voicing your needs and concerns to City Hall and promises to advocate tirelessly on your behalf is key. I am that person. Thank you.
Ward 4 candidate Stephen Orser.
Thank you. Thank you to Aeolian Hall and the candidates and everyone else for coming here today. It's much appreciated. My opponent, Mr. Helmer, has a website that he puts his donators on and so forth, and he's made a statement about transparency in campaign finance. In that spirit, I released my campaign donators to the London Free Press last night. I am now releasing them to CTV. I challenge Jesse Helmer to do the same. I want to meet his challenge. I wanted to get that off my chest, that I haven't taken a donation from a union or from a company. It's against the law now. Before I did. This time I raised all my money in 1 week. I'm almost to the target of $20,500. And I did it through family and friends and a couple other part-time friends.
Thanks, Stephen.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay.
And Ward 4 candidate Connor Garrett.
Hello, everybody. So I'm running for Ward 4. That's pretty obvious. So I'm fairly nervous. I haven't done this in a long time. I decided to run because I would just talk to people where I worked and people, my friends, my family, and I thought I might be able to do some good for the City of London. I'm very happy to even be able to have the chance to try. I might also be the youngest candidate running for City Councillor. I'm only 22 years old. I have a learning curve to get through. I haven't done much of this before. I hope you'll all help me out with that, with any questions or anything that you have. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the opening statements. So now we're going to enter into, I guess we'll call them the major issues. The organizers of the debate have given us these 5 issues that they want each candidate to discuss. You'll be given 2.5 minutes each for your answer to each question. And we're going to start with probably the biggest topic in this election, BRT. Bus rapid transit is London's biggest ever project and probably its most contentious. If you could change one thing about it and be specific, what would it be? So we'll start with Ward 4 candidate Jesse Helmer.
Thank you very much. And obviously, bus rapid transit is a major project that's been underway in some form or another since 2006, and we're finally getting to the point where we can deliver the project. One thing I'll say is that the solution to the problems we have with transit is to improve the reliability. The way we're going to do that is by building dedicated lanes. Right now, the busiest routes, the ones where rapid transit is going to run, half the buses are late. So we got people standing around waiting for buses. It's not an acceptable level of service. That's why people are choosing other ways of getting around. One thing I would change about bus rapid transit is to electrify the buses. This is something that's been a preference of council, but it's not included in the current plan. Right now, we've budgeted for the capital side on the electric buses, but we haven't included it in the business case in terms of the savings and operating costs. Switching to electric buses will save $860,000 a year in energy costs, which is a huge savings. It's making it about 10% cheaper to run the bus fleet It only requires charging for 3 or 4 minutes at the end of each of the runs. It's very cost effective, and it's going to eliminate all the emissions from running diesel buses. So one thing I would change is I would electrify the bus fleet for sure. One thing I would not change is the dedicated lanes. And I know that people will tell you that we can spend less and do less and somehow get more. We can't. We had an expert peer review come into the Rapid Transit Implementation Working Group. The one clear thing that they all agreed on was you must maintain the dedicated lanes if you're going to maintain the high level of service. That is the expensive part of the project. About $430 million of the $500 million on the capital side is to do the road expansions that are required, so we've got the room in the future. We cannot accommodate 80,000 new people living in London the way we accommodated the last 80,000 people. That pattern of growth just doesn't work. If we keep doing that, we're going to have gridlock that paralyzes the city. We have to change how we're doing it, and we have to build BRT.
We'll go now to Ward 4 candidate Tricia Lister.
Well, the one thing that I do oppose most about the project is, of course, the dedicated lanes, and I will certainly tell you why. I believe that the city does deserve and needs good and reliable transit, but the BRT plan as it is not the way to go. Aside from the plan in its entirety, the dedicated lanes will hold traffic at ransom in a misguided aim to increase ridership. The current budget, well hidden across various departments, has left Londoners in the dark as to how much money has been spent so far on the BRT project. The proposed $12 million operating budget has no guarantees that ridership will increase to cover it, or that gas taxes will be provided to offset it. We can have a better transit system. We can improve the paratransit service. We can extend the schedules and expand the routes. We can look into adding smaller electric buses to service areas of the city where currently there is no transit at all, able to connect people to employment opportunities that they're not able to access at present. We can look into using smart technologies with sensors on buses and traffic signals to help keep buses on time, and push for a system where real-time schedules are actually that, reflected accurately 100% of the time. Adding bus bays on major thoroughfares and increasing our express routes can all make an impact towards positive change in transit. We can consult, and we should consult, with the transit operators, with the riders who use the service regularly, and with those riders who would like to access transit but currently cannot for whatever reasons. More importantly, we need to put the needs and desires of Londoners first when it comes to the BRT, and elect a candidate that's committed to improving our transit system for those who need it most. Thank you.
Ward 4 candidate Stephen Orser.
Could you clarify the question to me? I'm not sure if I heard it. Is it one thing I want to change about the BRT? Is that the question now?
Well, I suppose you could say more than one, but yeah, at least one thing that you would change about the project if you could.
When the new council's elected, I'll be sitting in the Ward 4 seat, and I'll vote immediately to cancel the BRT. The reason I'm going to do that without hesitation started a few months ago. I was over at Metro. I ran into a former staff member that appeared in front of council for 8 years that I know and trust. And I asked him about the BRT and what the tax hit would be on my house on Ross Street, where I'm going to stay for the rest of my life. He told me in the area of $1,000 with the cost overruns that are projected that we're not hearing about. And he called this thing a boondoggle that should stop. He didn't want his name involved. And I just thought maybe it's a mad employee. Next thing you know, I'm talking to another fellow at City Hall that I know personally, and he mentions $1,200. I personally won't ride the BRT. I have a car. I'm not going to give it up. And I think that we have to rethink the entire project before we get stuck with a historic tax hit that's just staggering. And that's my concern, and that's one of my motivations to run again. I don't want a gigantic tax hit on my house or your homes. So that's the thing I'd change. I'd change it from a yes vote to an Orser no vote to cancel the BRT.
And Ward 4 candidate Connor Garrett.
So I take the bus every time I go to work. The service in London's not fantastic. For a trip that takes 10 to 15 minutes to get not far across the city, it takes me 45 minutes to an hour on general. So the more I look into this BRT, the more I see that it doesn't help the general public. It helps mostly the students, which they, in their tuition costs, get a transit pass that runs year-round. So if they ride the bus once, or if they ride the bus 20 times a day, you have made the exact same amount of money off them, which means that even if you have more students taking the bus, you won't make more money to offset some of the costs of the BRT system now. So the one thing I want to change for it specifically, if you were going to change one thing, would be to change the whole route of the BRT. It doesn't go far enough to help enough people the way it is. I am a little on the edge about the dedicated lanes, but if it will help future growth, I could see pushing for them, but it's not something I think is really needed. In my opinion, we should run a grid system like some of the other cities that are actually experiencing exponential growth. One of the cities I've seen stats for is Brampton. They have gone up 18% in a single year in how many people are actually riding their bus systems, because they changed the whole bus route system, not just adding this and then changing to work around it. Okay? Those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Mohammed Salih. Thanks. So as far as my position on this, back in 2016, I did vote against bus rapid transit. I did hope to see something more innovative and something a lot more long-lasting, in my opinion, at that time. And in 2017, I didn't support the consulting fees of $2.2 million at that time. Now, when staff came to us, the report was staff-driven. So the experts and the staff and the city engineers and all those people, the expert minds and the best and brightest that we were able to recruit, some of those people have been around for decades working for the City of London. They said that they felt that this was the best plan to bring forward. I didn't necessarily agree with that, but that was the direction that staff had come and brought forward to us at that time. So I do believe that, for me, the one thing that I'd want to change is the technology, of course, and something that's a little bit more innovative and a little bit more aggressive. So I don't know what that means for us today or tomorrow, but currently, as it stands, I think there's always still room for improvement, but the reality remains for me that I think this was something where the experts had a lot of input on, and there was a lot of significant consultation within our communities. And of course, City Council, from what I could tell, and from staff, from what I can tell, have continued to engage with the public and continue to be open ears on this conversation to help move the city forward. And I recognize that we can't not do something. We have to do something. We have to be innovative. We have to be aggressive, because we're going to get left behind. We can't be the one community that's left, whether it's Toronto, Ottawa, Waterloo region, that just does nothing and has nothing new and innovative. So I think that puts us at a disadvantage for retaining and attracting new people and new talent. And I know when I talk to people in other cities who say they want to invest dollars in our community, they look at what the cities are doing and they look at what the communities are doing. And these are one of the things that they look for. In particular, when we talk about millennials and my peers, as a millennial, that's some of the things that they're looking for, getting around the city and being able to get. And sometimes those 1 to 2 to 3 to 5 minutes have an impact, especially in today's world where technology and responsiveness has to be immediate. And I think that's what we need to do. So thank you.
Our second topic is one you'll obviously be hearing about a lot if you're elected to City Council. It's property taxes. Property tax hikes over this 4-year council term have averaged roughly 2.8% annually. Would you say that's too low? In other words, you think the city should be investing more in big ticket projects? Too high? You think spending should be cut? Or just about right? And we will start with Tricia Lister, the Ward 4 candidate.
Thanks. Of course, I get to be first up on everyone's favorite issue, taxes. I do feel that our annual tax increases at present are too high, and I think that we can look to decreasing tax burdens with some smarter spending patterns. Certainly, when we are focused on municipal growth, over time that can happen to offset our individual tax burden, but it won't happen overnight. As more and more services get downloaded to the municipality from the provincial government, we must do better with what we have. We need to look at our return on investment for all major projects to start. The Victoria Bridge is a great example of this. 2 councillors asked council to send this report back to staff just to see if they could save some money on the project. After much debate about the features of this bridge, Council voted to continue with the project as planned at a cost of $14 million. While that's only a drop in the bucket in terms of municipal spending, finding a savings of even less than 10%, say $1 million, could have made a very huge impact on other projects, infrastructure, or even social services. We need to hold ourselves accountable, and we need to elect someone that can be fiscally responsible with our tax dollars and prioritize the much-needed projects first. Thank you.
There goes Steve. Ward 4 candidate Stephen Orser.
My history from 2006 to when Mr. Helmer defeated me in 2014 was to be responsible on voting on tax matters. The tax rates we implemented were below what Matt Brown's council has done. My nature is to fight taxes. My home, I pay about $2,500 a year. It's a modest home, but it's my home. And that's another bill I don't need to pay. And again, I'll say it again, this BRT should be canceled day one, or when you open that tax envelope in the next year and the year after, when the cost overruns pop up and everyone's scrambling, you're gonna find it's just a shocker. So all you have to do is vote for Steve Orser, and I will always do what I did for 8 years in regards to taxes. And if you like me, that's wonderful. If you do not like me and you want to get rid of the BRT, go in the voting booth, plug your nose and vote Orser, and I'll cancel it day one.
So, in my opinion, the taxes in London, they're a bit high. We should be trying to not decrease the products we have. We should just be trying to find creative ways to lower the costs of them. We don't want to make it so that some of the people that make less money in the city have to choose between paying their property taxes and some of their basic utilities and necessities in London, like food. It's a big one. Things need to happen, growth needs to happen for the future, so taxes are necessary to go up. Just a lower percentage, 2.8% is what it's considered. I thought maybe 1% to maybe a bit lower would be enough to maintain and maybe do some of the projects. It's not something I know a whole lot about, truthfully. It's something I'd have to research more and ask more people who know. So if anyone has any information that they would like to share or ask, I would love to take those questions either later tonight or in emails. Okay? Thank you.
So having been on your city council, and I recognize Orser's really passionate, but I don't report to Matt Brown, I report to the City of London and in particular to the Ward 3 residents, so I just wanted to clear that up as well. But I think for me, what I recognize what was important as I do report to those citizens in Ward 3 is to make sure that life continues to be affordable while moving the city forward. I know for me, when during the multi-year budget, I looked at line-by-line items, and I know I voted against $18 million in some spending in some areas, and said, what could we do to be innovative? So, but at the same time, I made sure that we can continue to move forward and have those supports that are needed, because the reality is if we don't have those taxes, then we're paying for it some other way. And we need to do better to support one another in the community, and we need to help our city, but at the same time ensure some of our most vulnerable are looked after, as well as ensuring that seniors can continue to live in their homes and maintain their homes, because the reality is life is becoming more and more expensive, and we need to do a lot better. So for me, I think the reality is London happens to be one of the lowest tax cities in the province, which is a fact, but I think as well as recognizing that it's not perfect, I think there's always room for improvement, and I think I continue to vote against some of those areas where I don't think there was needed increases, but at the same time, support the places where I can to help move this city forward. Thank you.
Everybody's favorite topic, taxes. A couple of things I would say. One is, there's more to city finance than just what you're paying in taxes. There's also what you get in services. And I think what most people are interested when it comes to property taxes is value for money, right? They want to get good value for the property taxes that they're paying. And I think at 2.8%, we are kind of pushing the limit on how fast we can increase property taxes. I think, unfortunately, we had a previous council, which Stephen has mentioned, that kept it below in the rate of inflation. If we don't do something to actually change the costs and how fast the costs are increasing, obviously every year you have one that's under inflation, you're going to have one that's over inflation, and we're essentially playing catch up in the last couple of years on the tax rate. So I do think that that's kind of the upper limit. It's a bit higher than what you're seeing in inflation, and I think we need to do better in the long term, although I supported the increases we made. We've done a couple of things that I think were very good from a fiscal responsibility perspective. One is that we ended the vacancy tax rebate. The vacancy tax rebate was a rebate that was paid to business owners who had empty businesses that didn't have any tenants. It cost the taxpayers $1.8 million a year, and we're putting an end to that program, so that's taking a little bit off of the tax roll. We have also paid down and reduced the city's debt by 11% in the first 3 years that we were on council. That has lowered the interest payments on the debt by $1.8 million a year. So that is also freeing up room to do other things that we need to do in the city without having to go to the property taxpayers for more and more money. And so I think those are the kind of changes we have to make when we're looking at how we're going to change the rate of tax increases. There's a specific problem which I campaigned on, which was reducing the tax burden on people who are living in multi-unit apartment buildings. And we made progress on that too. So in the last 3 years, we've lowered the tax rate on those buildings. In Ward 4, a lot of people got rent reduction notices because of those changes. Across the entire city, 9,900 people received rent reduction notices because of the property tax changes that we made at the policy level. 11% of the people who received property tax reduction notices, they live in Ward 4. They live on streets like Huron, Mornington, Connaught, Dundas Street. It's really important that we have a fair property tax system that's actually working for everybody. It doesn't matter what kind of housing you live in, and you should be taxed
Thanks, Jesse.
appropriately.
Thank you. London is an Ontario leader in proposing supervised drug injection sites. As a citizen, not as a politician, but as a London citizen, do you view these as helpful to the community or harmful? And we'll start with Ward 4 candidate Stephen Orser.
This issue, Mr. Helmer asked me to sign his petition to continue the safe injection sites. I've read about them. I was on the health unit. I decided to go out for a walk the other day and actually meet drug addicts and ask them questions. I gathered up around 300 needles around the safe injection site downtown in a 5-block radius. It's not working. It's sad, but it's not working. What I believe, after talking to a number of addicts, I asked them one thing before they injected. If you had a place to go where you had housing and rehab and you could get better and pull the needle out of your arm, would you go? The majority said yes. That place does not exist yet. I believe the new city council, the 3 MPs, the federal MPs should contact Doug Ford and Christine Elliott and work out a plan with Victoria Hospital to build a proper rehab center and housing center for people that are suffering from this, so they can actually have a doctor help them. So they'll be within a walking distance of a psychiatrist if they have those problems, or if they have HIV or hepatitis, unfortunately, they will be within a walking distance of treatment. And they'll be protected by from the drug dealers that prey on them around these places, because there's security at the hospital and it's a peaceful environment. This is the way to step forward on this issue. We get rid of the tent cities, we get rid of the needles, we get rid of the addiction, and we bring members back to society. I think all of us can agree on that as a plan.
It's okay. Now, the safe injection sites, they're a tricky subject, but I agree with the getting people healthy. That is my thought process, is if we're going to do anything, we should get those people healthy so that they can continue to live a normal, healthy life. We shouldn't be giving a place downtown or somewhere else to go and do their drugs, because the drug dealers are just going to hang around those areas and cause more problems for those areas. Okay? The other thing is they're going in apartment buildings currently, which means that the tenants didn't really agree to that when they first moved in. They're just being put in, so then they're being forced to live around these other people. All right? It is a perfect idea to go and make a rehab clinic in the hospitals. My idea was, if we were going to make the injection sites, to actually put them in the hospitals, because they have staff, they have the equipment, they have security, so you won't get the criminal element of it hanging around to cause more problems. And on top of that, it would, if someone else got overdosed off one of these sites, they can, instead of being ambulanced to the emergency room to then clog up an emergency room bed and take up doctor's time, they could go to the injection sites and have people there take care of them. So the emergency room would have less of those instances, and they could focus more on the other accidents and other things that help more people. Thank you. Those are my thoughts. He summed them up very well, so not much for me to say. Thank you.
As a citizen, how I approach these issues is recognizing that I'm not a doctor, I'm not a social worker, I'm not a mental health or an addiction expert. But when I hear from the doctors and when I hear from our chief medical officer saying these things save lives, then that's all it takes for me to say that this is the direction in the right direction. So I know that there's people dying, whether it's here in this community and other communities, and it can happen to any one of us, and any one of us can find ourselves in this vicious cycle. We need to do what we can to support those people in need. I know it's a difficult conversation. I know it's not an easy conversation, but I have a responsibility to one another and to one of our fellow citizens to do what we can. I know part of the conversation has been directly with the London Police Services. As I've had experience sitting on the London Police Service Board as the chair, I know this has been a conversation that we regularly have. I know the police chief has been engaged on this conversation, and this has been something that has been led by the health experts, not the politicians, not by everyday people who maybe don't have a depth of knowledge of experience in this, but the reality is the consultation needs to happen. People need to be continued to engage with, and I think that's the direction that's best needed to ensure that we continue to move forward to help those most in need.
Thank you very much, and I'm glad we're talking about this topic. It's really important. The best estimate from the health unit and people who are working with injection drug users is that there's probably 6,000 people who are injecting drugs in the City of London. It is a very widespread problem. And many of these people live middle class and upper middle class lifestyles. They are injecting at home, and they're doing so relatively safely. There are hundreds of people who are not. There are hundreds of people who are on the street. They're injecting in parks. They're injecting in alleys. They're injecting in parking lots. And they're not doing it safely. They're not doing it under the supervision of a nurse. As a result, the spread of infectious diseases is going up. It's going up in London among people who are injecting drugs way faster than it is elsewhere in the province. Hepatitis C, HIV, an infection in your heart valves called endocarditis, these are all epidemic level problems in London, and it's very specific to what's happening here. Temporary overdose prevention site supervised consumption service is absolutely needed in the community. It slows down the spread of disease. It keeps people alive. At the one we've had now, there have been over 4,700 injections at the temporary overdose prevention site. 6 people have overdosed, and all of their lives have been saved. So it is working. And it also leads to these other services which are also necessary. Supervised injection services, supervised consumption services, they're not going to solve the whole problem. They're just part of what we need to do. And referring people from that service into these other services like addictions counseling, mental health supports, get them into housing, get them into treatment and rehab when they want to and when they're ready. That is happening as well. 91 people have been referred to services like that since the temporary overdose prevention site opened. So it's critical that it stays open. I'm really glad that Premier Ford and Minister Elliott responded to the request from London to keep that open and have renewed it until September. But we have to keep pushing for that because that is a critically important health service. We cannot cancel and get rid of critically important health services in the community. Everybody in this community deserves our support. Everybody has different health issues. That's what this is. And we need to support people.
For me, as a parent, I guess I can say that I can understand and appreciate when people come to me with a sentiment that they would prefer to have a safe injection site not in their neighborhood. I don't think that anyone can argue against the fact that safe injection sites in a harm reduction model can and indeed has saved lives. I do think that we need to better discuss with the communities directly affected where and how a permanent location for the site will be chosen. As we all know, addiction is a huge and ever-growing problem in our city. I'm confident that I'm not alone in the desire to halt, decrease, or even try to eradicate this issue. Unfortunately, without the much-needed support and beds from the province and no dedicated medical recovery facility, we're left with few options. I'm well aware that there are some social supports being offered at the current safe injection site, but I do believe that we can do better for the citizens of London. We have so many wonderful organizations in the city which are dedicated to improving the lives of our most vulnerable people. I think it's time to start a conversation where we can rely on their expertise and innovation to start looking at solutions to solve the addictions crisis. Thank you.
Okay, our next question is a suitable one given the venue we're in tonight. What role, if any, should City Council play in promoting local arts and community vitality in London? And we will start with Ward 4 candidate Connor Garrett.
Okay, so to be truthfully about this, I thought this was a bit of a tricky question. I thought that the city has been doing a lot of stuff to help with promoting arts and their community vitality. The things for community vitality that I thought were odd were there's the soccer fields on Oxford Street, which are used every summer, all the time, and we're going to build over them and build a stadium downtown instead of having those there where kids actively use them all the time. The arts section, I think that I don't know an answer to it, truthfully. I don't know how they're going to help with the promotion of it. I think we should, obviously. It's something that everyone needs. It's a lot of people use for their own mental health and whatnot. It's just not something I know much about, unfortunately. Thank you.
Sorry, I keep inviting myself up. I'm just trying to make sure that the audience gets the opportunity to speak and ask some questions. So I think the city plays a key role. And I know early on, one of the first things I pushed forward was the culture and entertainment districts study in our city to ensure that we can be a community that actually has that. So what that was an extensive review of some of our bylaws and to ensure that we're at pace and where we need to be to make sure that we have a competitive edge, because we're competing with a lot of other communities when we're having different events. So I know whenever things like, for example, Rock the Park come up and they ask for an extra day to rock the park. And I know those are difficult conversations in some communities, especially in the downtown core and Soho in particular. People will say you have to find the right balance because people want to be able to live downtown and not have the music. But I felt that it was important to continue to pursue these things because when I came in and when I was knocking on doors, people said, Mo, get us some jobs. And I knew that by ensuring that we have a vibrant downtown and a vibrant economy, a vibrant culture and entertainment district, we can create those jobs. And how we create those jobs is by, for example, every time Rock the Park has an extra day, that's another $1 to $2 million in local economic impact. That's a couple of part-time jobs for folks, sometimes full-time jobs for folks in our community. And so we also wanted to review some of the bylaws that were in place, whether it was the no music on the sound, no music on patios, no dancing even on patios in our city. And some of those things sometimes required us to be very aggressive. At one time, asking our bylaw officials to pause enforcement of certain sound music enforcement, because I felt that we as a city shouldn't get in the way of local businesses thriving. We should support those businesses. So whether it's the restaurants and bars, ensuring they continue to succeed and have the guests and artists that they have, as well as myself working with Tourism London as a representative there and bringing forward a motion at City Hall to ensure that we can have a bid for the Junos Awards. And as you all know, we're successful for that, which is going to be a $10 million economic impact in 2019. And I know I work with some of my colleagues, one particular, Councillor Helmer, on ensuring that we can have some of that vibrancy piece and ensuring those are going to create more jobs and put our city further on the map. So I think those are the things that we need to do. We recognize that there is a huge economic impact in having a successful and vibrant art and entertainment cultural district.
Thank you, and I appreciate the shout out, Mo, but I gotta say that there's not been another person on council who pushed as hard for arts and for tourism in the City of London, especially entertainment related tourism, than you. You've done a really good job, especially as a rep on the Tourism London board. I think arts sometimes gets misunderstood as something that is just fun and not necessarily something that's great for our economy and great for our city overall. And I think when people look at why they like living in particular cities, it's the cultural aspects of the city that are really the determining factors. People love certain things about London. For example, going down to the Knights game, coming here to the Aeolian Hall to see a show, going to the Palace or the Grand Theatre. These are things that are unique to London that you're not necessarily going to get in another place. It's what makes London the special place that it is. And so I think the city, through a variety of different ways, as a funder, sometimes as a convener of other organizations, as a regulator, as Mo was talking about, we do have a lot of bylaws interact with the different things that people are trying to do in the city. We have a lot of different roles to play in supporting a really dynamic arts and culture scene. We have that in London. I mean, I think it's amazing. This venue here in Old East is amazing. The Palace Theatre does amazing work. And we've done things like, for example, give the Palace Theatre a $100,000 loan, interest-free, so that they could fix the walls, the exterior part of their walls where they're having continual problems. So sometimes the city has to step up and be the funder. Other times the city needs to get out of the way and let great things happen. And so there's a variety of things we have to do. I think we've been doing a good job so far on that front. But it is an interesting area. You know, most of the people who work in arts and music, they're very dynamic, interesting people. Sometimes they don't get along that well. And I think the city also has to kind of mediate some of the conflicts, not just between the people working in the areas, but also between residents and the people who are putting on these performances, because there are going to be conflicts between something like Trackside at the Western Fair, which is new, and the people who live in the area, right? And in Old East, fortunately, in this part of Ward 4, people like to open their window and listen to the concert for free. People like it. In other parts of the city, people really do not like the music coming into their homes, and it does cause some frustration. So the city's got to do a lot of different things. I think we could do more on arts and culture and community vitality.
I think that we're extremely fortunate to live in such a vibrant city. I know myself, every winter, I kind of brighten when I think of how many festivals and street parties and various events we have throughout the city through the spring and summer months. We are about to host the Junos, which is as big as it gets in this country. Canada, I'm sure, will be watching us to see how we can use this amazing opportunity in particular to expand our tourism and further boost our local economy. I would support, of course, working with Tourism London and their plans to highlight all the best that London has to offer, from Bud Gardens, Museum London, our view into our history and heritage at the Eldon House, along with my current favorite, Saturday afternoon at Storybook Gardens. When it comes to community vitality, however, we can do more. Sorry to the OEV people here, you're going to hate what I'm going to say here now. I really feel that we need to support and encourage the development of more neighborhood and community groups. And I think that our current grant program is structured so that the most votes wins can enable the larger community groups to secure funding for their projects far easier than the rest. I believe that all community and neighborhood organizations should have access to grants for their improvement projects, for their street festivals, or for special occasions. And I think that when all people feel empowered to join, support, or create their own new community group or one existing, that can really help strengthen our city.
Over my 8 years on council, I supported street festivals, I supported the arts in many different ways with a quiet vote in support of the ideas that were coming forward. I will speak specifically about this building, what I did for this building, for this arts center, Aeolian Hall. When it came time for a new roof, not only did I lobby other councillors and vote yes, and we achieved that roof for Clark Bryant, but when Clark Bryant had his air conditioners coil stolen from behind here, and he was standing there, I showed up very quickly because I'm a hands-on councillor. I come out and deal with the problems. He had a problem with thievery, his air conditioning coils being stolen, taken over to the scrapyard. My response to support the arts was to draft a very simple bylaw that would make it impossible for anyone to steal something like that and go sell it. If there's no place to sell it, they won't steal it. It's very common sense. We know in this area the problems we're having with break-ins and sheds, garages and houses and cars. And they're stealing trinkets, small things to run to the pawn shop and sell. With my idea, they would have had to identify where they got the item from by thumbprint. It would have cut down on a lot of the crime and cut down on a lot of things that interfere with the arts moving forward by shutting down the air conditioning unit here. That's one example of what I did for this building. Thank you.
Okay. A simple question with many complicated potential answers now. What is the biggest issue facing your ward over the next 4 years? And we will start with Ward 3 incumbent Moseley.
Well, I guess it depends, but I could tell you that definitely on a lot of folks' mind in the ward, it's the economy and the local economy in particular, and some of the jobs and challenges that they're faced there. But in particular, as you know, if you're anyone who's here from Ward 3 recognizes that there's some of the student relations that continues to be a contentious conversation specific to the ward. So I think those are some of the conversations that remain out there, and why I've tried to find creative ways, and why I've continued to be the voice for the community when, for example, developments try to happen at for example, the former Huron Heights School, and why I chose not to support that development because the community wasn't supportive of that, because they recognized that that development did not fit within the community there, and the impacts and the eventual costs that would have to the greater London community and the taxpayer, because we would require more bylaw officers. And part of my term on, that's why I wanted to make sure we had more bylaw officers. I know, and to find more creative ways. I know Orser talked about bringing forward sometimes bylaws, and one particular bylaw that I did bring forward, I'm sure Orser is probably aware of it, which is around, pawn shops not being able to sell some of the items right off the bat. So they'd have to held for 5 days, as well as it'd have to be registered and it'd have to be sent over to the London Police Services for verification of some of those pieces. So I just wanted to mention that. So I think you're kind of on the same page on some of those pieces there. So I think just trying to find creative ways to address some of those issues, but recognize, I think, in the ward in particular, those are the two things that are on most of the constituents' mind. And I think, I'm not sure, but Orser looked like he had something to say, but I'll yield my time to him.
No rebuttals here.
I want to use my time to talk about an issue that's important in Ward 4, but also throughout the entire city, and that is affordable housing, making sure that we're keeping housing affordable for people. That when we're building new housing, we're building it so it's fiscally sustainable in the long run. And part of that is what we're seeing in the London plan, which is building more inward and upward. So building housing in the core that's a lot more fiscally sustainable in the long run, because it didn't cost so much money to build. You don't have to build all the new roads and all the new services out to the new housing. You're building on what you've already got. And in the long run, that's going to help with affordability. In the short term, people have got very specific needs. We have a long wait list for social housing. It's thousands of people. We have over 2,700 people accessing emergency shelter in the most recent year we reported on. We have people who are living in parks and outside because they can't get into shelter. They can't get stable, secure, affordable housing. So we're doing a lot on these fronts, but this is the sort of challenge of our time, which is to build that affordable housing for people, all different kinds of housing. And I've been on planning committee now for 4 years, and I can tell you when new housing is proposed in an area, a lot of people turn out and they say, no, 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 I don't like it. And the problem is we have to be able to build new housing. We have to figure out ways it's going to actually work in the area. So yes, it needs to fit into the area, but we do need to build new housing. And I think the challenge is going to be, how do we manage that intensification, the infill projects, so that they work with the neighborhood, but they're also providing good housing options for people, more townhouses, more smaller apartment buildings, more mid-rise buildings, in downtown and along the rapid transit corridors, the taller buildings that can accommodate a lot of people in a small amount of space. You know, we need to be able to plan for about 80,000 new people moving to the City of London and being in the City of London over the next 20 years. How we're going to do that is really important. And building more suburbs on the edge of town, building up on top of farmland and over woodlots is not going to solve the affordability issues people are experiencing in Ward 4. Right? We have to build new housing here in the ward. We've approved 800 new housing units in Ward 4 over the last few years. 37% of those have already been built. Some of them have been affordable housing units. But it's a big challenge, and we have to do much, much better over the next 4 years.
Thanks, Jesse, for bringing up affordable housing. That's certainly a project that's close to my heart. I took some time figuring out the best way to answer this question, as there's so many issues affecting Ward 4 and the entire city. And from the BRT to the endless construction projects, affordable housing, addiction issues, and homelessness. But in asking some constituents what they felt that their biggest issue was, the answer kind of surprised me. I've heard that what people want in Ward 4 is to elect someone with integrity, to know that when they call or email that their call will be returned and promptly, to trust that when their collective needs arise, their councillor will advocate on their behalf in finding a solution and work tirelessly for them, as well as cultivating the much needed relationships with other members of council and staff so that they can be effective in their efforts. Being able to have faith in your representative, I believe, is not only the biggest issue for Ward 4, but also in many other areas of the city as well.
I think the biggest issue in the next 4 years for Ward 4 is to end the Kathleen Wynne tax and spending thinking. We've had 4 years of it. I'd like to end it. And it's no disrespect as a person to Mr. Helmer. It's just the thinking pattern that our pockets are deep and our ATM is always on. I don't like. As you're aware, my goal is to cancel the BRT right away. As soon as we sit for our first council meeting, start acting on it and cancel it. My next goal is to expedite, finally, the Adelaide Street underpass at Central. We've waited too long. I fought for 8 years to get it number one. Now it's a number one, and now we're going to wait another 2 years. I think we can get it done quicker. The other thing we have to do is we've got to contact the provincial government, change the Municipal Act so we have the right to do bonusing. Bonusing is a technique they use in New York State where if somebody sets up a factory and brings 1,000 jobs, they don't pay taxes for 10 years. That's how you get the factories in. That's how you get the jobs in. We can't compete with the Americans unless we have bonusing. It's the new way we're going to get jobs. So I want to get Doug Ford to change the Municipal Act so we have that right to say to a company. And some of the companies that I trade on the Toronto Stock Exchange, some of the cannabis companies, are looking for places to domicile their factories. This is a brand new industry that's going to go worldwide, and we should position ourselves as a leader in getting these companies to come here and hire people that need jobs. That's my plan. I don't know what other people's plans are. That's the way I'm heading.
So for me, the issue that I noticed in Ward 4 that needed to be done within the next 4 years was the Adelaide Street underpass that he brought up. It's something that I've heard talked about for years and years and years probably before I was born, and they never got into being in the planning phase. Now we're in the planning phase. It needs to be pushed to be done, because if it's one of the major streets that everyone uses. It's one of the, it could be a major bus street avenue if they want it eventually, but it's going to take time to get done. And when it's under construction, it is going to cause massive detours, which is going to go down side streets where people live, and people aren't going to like that. So in my opinion, the thing that you have to push the most, that needs to get done the most in Ward 4, is that has to get pushed, get done in a timely and a not cheapest, but the most fiscally responsible manner. It's just something I see all the time. Too many people get stuck there, too many buses get stuck there, which delays people from getting to their jobs. Thank you.
Okay, so we're moving into another phase of our debate that will include questions from the audience. This is not quite the lightning round, but you will be restricted to 1 minute for your answers, and I encourage you to stay in your seats and just use the wireless microphones to answer them. And we'll be starting, I guess, with Ward 4 incumbent Jesse Helmer. First question, name one City Hall politician, past or present, who you'd model yourself after. And for obvious reasons, I'll note that you can't name yourself. But if you want to name somebody who's up there with you, I guess you can feel free to do that, okay? So we'll start with Ward 4 incumbent Jesse Helmer.
I would say Joni Beckler. I really appreciated Joni's approach to politics. You know, Joni was always prepared when she went to a meeting. She always knew the files that were coming in front of her at committee and at council. She did a really good job of working with the community in her ward to make sure she understood what they wanted and what they needed, and to make sure that they understood what was going on at City Hall, so they could show up when they needed to show up and give their input when they needed to give it. And I think Joni had a very responsible approach to politics. She was really honest with people, which I think is really critical in politics. Honest not just about what's going on, but about the trade-offs involved in policy. You know, what's going to happen, who's going to benefit, does it benefit everyone equally, or are some people better off and some people are not? And I think we have to have more of that in politics, and I really admire that about Joni Beckler.
I'm quite fond of Phil Squire. I've had the opportunity to get to know him over the past few weeks, and I really see him as someone who works hard to be a voice for his community, and will often ask some critical questions in council chambers that may not be the most popular ones, but they're questions that his constituents want and deserve answers to. I view him as someone that's just generally a good guy and an advocate and a voice for his ward. Thanks.
During my first term on council, I met Tom Gosnell. He assisted me a lot, and he became my friend, and he taught me one thing that I carry with me today. That's the ability to listen to people and understand them. I believe that if I was going to emulate anyone, it would most certainly be Tom for those reasons, and I believe our councillor hasn't got the ability to listen anymore, and an example is the BRT. He should cancel it.
So for me personally, I don't want to base myself off other councillors. I want to be me. I want to be myself. I think I could do good things for the City of London and for Ward 4. There are other councillors, but sometimes you need something new, different change, something a bit younger occasionally. So I just want to be me on the council. I don't want to base myself off of anybody. I just want to do what I can for the City of London. Thank you.
I think for myself, it kind of sound like Connor a bit. I think it's, I appreciate bringing a new, fresh perspective and a new way of doing politics, and I think I really kind of try to find a way that's a little bit different than the status quo. But if I was to pick some personalities or quality traits of a few folks. I know I'd echo Councillor Helmer's with Joni Beckler and just her ability to be well informed on issues, as well as I know this might surprise some people, but even Bernie McDonald, who's been around, and just his frankness and just being able to just be frank and direct on a lot of important conversations and not be circling around on the issue when answering questions.
Okay, next question. Growth is good, growth is inevitable, and by some metrics, London is booming. But who should have the final say in how London grows? Developers or City Council? And we will start with Ward 4 candidate Tricia Lister.
I think ultimately, at the end of the day, obviously the decisions when it comes to developments, particularly new ones in the city, come down to council. It's very important to consider community impact. Certainly, it's important to consider community requests. And it's also important to consider developer requests and impact. We need to be able to attract good developers into the city that are willing to work within our heritage districts and offer us progressive buildings to help stop our sprawl and kind of infill for us. So I think that there needs to be a careful balance between developer, community, and City Hall. I'd also like to see developers know London as the city that will use bonuses only for the purpose of inclusionary zoning and nothing else, so that we know from the start that the developers we're working with are prepared and ready to work with council to create more affordable housing units. Thanks.
I thought these were going to be new questions. You're reading the survey questions from the London Free Press. I was hoping for more for Ward 4, Pat. Anyways, with a lightheartedness, I say that to Pat. I've known him for years. He'll get me later, guaranteed. Council has the final say. That's it. The people elect a representative, and they make the decisions. So it's actually the voice of the people, through extension, that decide. It's not the developers, so it is City Council. The answer on that one was so simple.
I agree that it needs to be City Council that makes the decisions. There needs to be some give to some of those decisions, because we don't want to scare off too many developers, or we won't fill in. We won't have the developers come in and fill in some of our areas and build in and up. But yes, it has to be City Council that has to make the decisions, because the developers, for the most part, they are not as interested in what the people who live in the area are. They're more into what they're doing and how it will help them. So City Council needs to make those decisions.
I'll be brief. City Council and your elected representatives.
I think both council and developers need to listen to the people who live in the city. You know, when we come up with the official plan, the new London plan, we had thousands of people participate in that process to come up with, this is what we want to see in the city. And then council obviously is the ultimate decider in deciding what's going to happen in terms of a development proposal, but it's according to those policies that have been developed in consultation with the community. And I think developers need to listen to people too. They have to listen very carefully to what they're expressing, what their concerns are, because a lot of them can be accommodated. We've added in a lot of these interim meetings between the official public meeting and when the applications first come in. And it's helping to resolve a lot of those conflicts that come from the community. And I think it's a really good step forward. We have had a record amount of construction in the last 3 years. It's over $3.2 billion, which is like almost 40% higher than what we were seeing in the past. We're on track for another $1 billion this year. So it's a lot of activity is happening, and making sure that we're making really good decisions for the long term is the most important thing we're doing at Planning Committee.
Thanks, Jesse. Okay. Our next question will be probably solicit a quick answer. It's been up and down many times at City Council, green bin, but it seems as if there could be a decision looming in the next council term. So very simply, if a curbside composting program is in fact on the table and you were elected to City Council, yes or no, would you support it? We'll start with Ward 4 candidate Stephen Orser.
It's quite the costly program, for the service you get. I went out and bought my own composters that you spin, and I've used it for the last 6 months and haven't had to empty it. The amount of waste that we're throwing out for green bins, my friends in St. Thomas that have a system there, a lot of them don't even use it. So based on that, I think it wouldn't be a good expenditure right now. What we should do is we should have community composting piles in each ward, 2 or 3, where you can go and put your compostables, and you can also pick up your free garden mulch. That's how we should handle this problem. And we should have a program where you can get a spinning composter, because it works quite well, and it's a good place to send your kid when she's bothering you all day. Go spin the composter. Thanks.
It is something I think that should be done. It will be costly, unfortunately, but it's better than adding things that don't have to go to landfills in landfills. That'd be just a better solution in my mind.
Our landfill is almost full. I supported it during the multi-year budget, and I'd support it again.
You can count on Mo to get right to the point. The landfill is running out of space. I didn't support green bins a couple of years ago because I thought there was some potential in mixed-use waste processing. We've now explored that over the last couple of years. A number of municipalities are backing off of it. It's not proving to be cost-effective, so it looks like the most effective way forward in terms of increasing diversion is to do the green bin pickups in front of people's homes. We also have specific problems in multi-unit buildings in terms of increasing recycling and getting some kind of organic diversion happening in those multi-unit buildings, and we're going to need to do some pilots and test some other things in addition to those green bin programs.
In short, I would most definitely support green room programs. London is far behind the rest of the province in implementing these. Composting can have some benefits on an individual level, but it also attracts urban wildlife into places that they shouldn't be. I'm concerned about our landfill being filled, and I have a concern about what it will cost us to purchase new landfill space and the space that that will take. If we can offset even part of that by a few decades by implementing this program, I think that the cost savings will show us a good return on an investment in time.
And we turn now to the audience for questions. Again, to the candidates, you're encouraged to stay in your seats and use the wireless microphones. We'll give you 1 minute to answer each question, and then, of course, we'll allow rebuttals if anyone wishes to give one. We ask you in the audience to please be respectful with your questions, and especially to be brief and to the point. We're running into a little bit of a time crunch and want to get as many questions as we can for the candidates. So we'll start here off to the left.
My name is Sam Trosso. I think most of you know me. I used to serve as the chair of the London Housing Advisory Committee, and I'm very interested in affordable housing. There seems to be an assumption that if you build more housing, dense housing, that's going to solve the affordability problem. And the problem I have with that is if you're building market rate housing or luxury housing, how does that solve the affordability problem? Developers come in and they seek huge bonuses, and unless you insist that that bonus is going to be given over in large part to an affordability portion of the units, you're just creating more expensive housing. You haven't implemented the inclusionary zoning yet. I know there are problems with the province but I do think that your bonusing could be more aggressive, and I'd like you to all address that.
So, Sam, I guess your question is, would you increase bonusing, make it more aggressive to make housing, more affordable housing in the city? Yes. In essence. Why do you think building luxury housing
I can go first if you want.
Go ahead. Sure, sounds good.
I forget what order we're in. I think I touched on that briefly, that I feel strongly that London needs to be known as the city that doesn't give out bonusing willy-nilly anymore, that all of our new developments, particularly high-rise and buildings in infill areas, must have bonusing strictly attached to the use of inclusionary zoning and creating affordable units for all. Without that, we're not going to end up with a city that has any affordable units. We're just going to be doing the same thing that we have been for a while now, and it's obviously not working.
Anyone? Would anyone else like to weigh in? Okay.
Yeah, for sure. So there's several things. I mean, it's a complicated issue, and there's a lot of things we need to do. One is funding affordable housing, the creation of affordable housing, which we're doing through the Housing Development Corporation, trying to leverage provincial and federal funding, especially the National Housing Strategy funding that's going to be coming forward from the feds. That's part of it. The other one is inclusionary zoning, which is now the regulations are in place, and frankly, we got the province to change the regulations so they weren't as problematic as they were when they came out in draft. And now they're quite good, and now we've directed staff, at our last council meeting, we directed staff to start that process of coming forward with inclusionary zoning bylaw, which will require that a certain percentage of units and new developments are affordable. And so that's not bonusing, that's a specific bylaw that does require it outside of the bonusing provisions that we already have under the Planning Act. So the other part is using bonusing to achieve some affordable units and new developments. And that's something we actually have included as a direction to the staff for the new proposal at 809 Dundas. And so, bonusing, there's design elements, there's sometimes you want parking to be underground, there's different aspects, but getting in some affordable housing included, that's an important objective. It's something I agree with Tricia on.
Thanks, Jesse. Anyone else want to weigh in? Sure, feel free.
I have heard about this affordable housing where they have to, developers have to put a percentage of their units to be affordable housing, which in my mind will most likely scare away more developers, because then they have to take they'll want to build taller to make up for those units. So I was thinking, why not have give developers a tax cut if they make a building for affordable housing, so that instead of making them have to make these super tall buildings to afford the units they have to have affordable housing, they'll still be able to have affordable housing buildings, but they'll still be able to make more money. Like, they'll be able to make their money and maybe make more of these buildings, and then so on and so forth. And hopefully that would help with that issue. Okay?
One thing that rings true, when a developer comes to the city and he wants to make a development, he or she will have a plan in place. And when the city starts cutting that up, hacking it up, then that developer will say, why even bother making the investment? So this young fellow's right. We don't want to scare him off. On the other hand, there's nothing wrong with making a deal for bonusing to include affordable housing, because many developers will agree to it. And so it's really a balancing act to not lose them and get a benefit for affordable housing. And Sam should be on a committee that could handle this with the new council, because he is one heck of a smart fellow when it comes to this.
So I support it. I think, I'm happy the direction that we're heading in right now as a council on this front. I think it's something that we need to move on a lot sooner. But recognizing that the province, the draft that they had, there was a lot of question marks there. And I think now with it coming back and staff heading in this direction, I think we're on to some momentum.
Okay, I think we have a question from the audience just here on the left. Go ahead.
I'm a frustrated driver. I wonder what your thinking is on fewer, faster road projects.
Yeah, that's a tough one. So we've had a lot of construction in the last little while, and I understand the frustration. Even compared to previous years, there's a lot of projects underway. We've had Florence closed, Dundas closed. A lot of the infrastructure renewal that was kicked down the road for a long time, we're finally catching up. And it's a lot. Doing them faster generally means they're more expensive. So I don't really like that aspect of it. Running them overnight sometimes can get you some benefits in terms of the length of the project, but it's less safe for a lot of the workers. I can tell you the companies don't like doing those projects at night, even with the lighting. And it's definitely more expensive, and it disturbs people who are trying to sleep. So, there's a lot of trade-offs involved in the construction projects. For major highway projects, doing what you're suggesting makes a lot of sense because there's fewer residents around. You can accelerate them, even move them quicker, and it's worth paying that extra money because there's so much traffic on them. It really depends on the roadway. It depends on the specifics of the project. For example, Jesse. Dundas Street was very deep, and you wouldn't want to work at it at night.
Okay. Anyone else want to weigh in on that? We're good? Okay.
I do.
Oh, sorry, Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think we need to, as a council, kind of look into where we're awarding contracts for buildings. I think that maybe I could get some agreement in the audience here that the most frustrating thing in the city is when you have a major project started on your street and then the crew disappears for 1 or 2 or 3 weeks. I see no reason. I mean, it's asset management and allocation. I could certainly not send a crew of my staff out to someone's home and have them do one job in the home and then come back next Tuesday afternoon to finish it. So I think, I'm sure that this is a problem that we can find a solution to. We just need to spend a little time focusing on that.
That's fine, thanks. I'm a frustrated driver too. A lot of the construction causes road rage, accidents, and so forth. It is very frustrating. The core answer to this problem is when you issue the contract, you include penalties for not meeting timelines. So if they say they can do it in a month, they don't, they're paying. When they have those penalties in place, they make it happen. So even at your own home, I had a roof put on. I made it very clear it had to be done at this time and done really fast, and I paid extra. The alternative in my contract that I drafted was if they didn't, they had to pay me extra. It's a big motivator. So the City of London has to simply say to construction companies, this is what we want. We want it done this time, and that's it. Yes, they are more expensive when you do them faster. Councillor Helmer's right. So it's a trade-off. Do you want them done fast, or do you want to have road rage and all the chaos we go through over and over? We just have to speed up the contracts.
Okay. So we do have a lot of questions from the crowd, and we're going to tighten the timeline up a little bit to 30 seconds per answer. I'm sorry to do that. The producers want to get as many questions in as we can, and we are running short on time. So for our next question, go ahead.
Hi, my name is George Hanna. I'm a resident in Ward 4. London is currently a sanctuary city, which I'm absolutely in favor of personally. I'd like to hear the candidates' position on whether they support or are against London continuing to be a sanctuary city. Thanks.
Sure. So we're a city where you can access services without fear. We did change the language a little bit, and I think that's really important. First of all, it's a huge waste of money to check everybody's ID before you provide municipal services. Nobody wants to do that. We're talking about what? Turning on the water in your home, getting a fire truck to respond to your house, using a public park, walking on the sidewalk. There's no reason to check anybody's ID or their immigration status for any of these things. It would be a huge waste of time. You wouldn't know, well, what's your immigration status? Well, let me see. You don't know who's a citizen, who immigrated here.
Thanks,
How
Jesse.
can anyone tell? And so I think it's a huge waste of time, and we have to treat people with dignity,
Thanks, Jesse.
regardless of how they're in the country.
So this is tricky. The more I look at other cities have done this, they've had major crime problems come in. So I'm personally against it because we don't need more crime problems coming into London. We would like to lessen those.
I've been in a relationship with a new immigrant for 7 years. She's from the Philippines. She's had to jump through every possible hoop to get here and to stay here. She's followed the law. We have laws that protect us, and they protect us for a reason. They protect us for equality. When you come to Canada, everyone should be treated equally and go through the same rules. I have all the compassion for people that are in bad situations, but we have laws for one reason.
Thanks, Stephen.
While I can't say that I was a huge fan of the concept at first, I really do believe that London is a very compassionate city, and putting the most vulnerable people, be they citizens or not, needs below the carpet just to save a dollar here or save a dollar there on some of the more minor city services, for example, seems a very unkind thing to do. So I certainly would support a model where we aren't harassing people for using our basic city services, or if it's taking their children into a family care center, for example. And I would like to see that continue in the city.
Thanks, Tricia. Okay, we got time for one last question, the producers say, and we got it over here off on the right.
Hi, my name's Matt. I'm a young person in Ward 4, and I think what I wanted to say was really more to the public that's here. I wish there was a bit more young presence in the room because I find it's important that we get out and vote and we get out and voice our opinion through that, because I'd love to see a city councilor that doesn't care about saying the shotgun item that gets people attracted to what they want to hear, just so they'll get the vote so they can get into this position. I think it's nice to hear people discussing topics that are a bit controversial and a bit sort of off the track of what everybody would like them to say, because it satiates in the moment. It's nice to think for the future and that we're going to grow and that we need to get to different places. In order to do that, we need to do things. I just said that at the beginning.
So do we have a question?
More question.
Okay, so we are going to get another question, guys.
Can I just it's to, if I can, it's to Councillor Helmer. The federal government gave billions of dollars for public transit 2014. 2015, council unanimously approved going after $1 billion LRT. In 2016, there was a meeting or the Budweiser meeting the day after Councillor Helmer was on a show, and he said the tunnel was critical. It wasn't. He was on a debate with Palato. He said that seniors over 80 are going to use their licenses and they're going to need public transit. He was wrong. He said that it's faster and better to use. The city manager and the project manager 2 months ago have said...
Phil, can we get the question?
2 months ago have said it won't be faster. I gave the council in Helmer a report with the rationale why it won't be. The question is, he hasn't been right in that in the past. Why should I trust him in the future?
Just before Jesse answer that, I am going to extend the question period by half an hour as long as all the candidates agree. So Jesse, I'll get to everybody. I'm going to come around the room, but let's let Jesse answer this.
Sure. So, Bill, you had a lot of things in there. I know we haven't agreed on everything over the years. I certainly appreciate you reaching out all the time when you do. And I do remember the Budweiser meeting. We had about 1,000 people there wanting to talk to us about BRT for, I think, 6 or 7 hours. You know, I try to be really accurate when I talk about what's going on at City Hall, to be honest with people about what's happening, to be clear about what's my opinion and what's information that's from a staff report or from a consultant's report. And sometimes we disagree about things, but I think we have to have a basic level of agreement about what the facts are. And I've tried to be clear about that. There's been a lot of misinformation out there about bus rapid transit. You know, back in the day, I supported the light rail option. I would have preferred that.
Thanks,
you know,
Jesse.
It's more money up front, but it's better in the long run. That wasn't supported by council.
Thanks, Jesse.
Any other questions in the room? Over here.
Thank you very much. Moving forward, I was wondering your perspective. I know this is community, and I appreciated the talk about community. Projects like the Venus Project that are resource organization. We see a lot of problems with the economic system, that it's based on unending growth in a finite resource world. So I'm just curious your thoughts. We have the technology to organize resources. We lose a lot of jobs, as you mentioned, because we have so much technology. We don't necessarily have to find a job for everyone in resource organization. So just a few of your thoughts on the future moving forward with this, as they have in Florida with the Venus Project.
Anyone want to try to tackle that one?
Sure, I'll try to go at it. And that's a great question. I think, you know, with technology and advances, it's really hard to keep up with a lot of paces, and our government is a lot slower. And I think we recognize that, and we've seen that in previous years here. I think that's kind of what's going to happen, and the city's going to be faced with that, and there's really no way other than trying to keep up and trying to make sure that we have the in-house talent to try to cope with that. So, I mean, I don't have the depth of knowledge in that area, but I continue to look forward to hearing from staff and getting those reports and hearing from stakeholders like yourself and having those further conversations to better educate myself to make sure I'm making more of an informed decision.
Just briefly, I would say you mentioned sort of use of resources, and I think the province was moving in a good direction with extended producer responsibility for people who are producing packaging and products, that they were going to be responsible for disposal of that. I think that's how we can get to a kind of zero waste kind of economy, where we're not just wasting things and throwing them into landfills or even doing all the extra work of recycling. I think by putting it on producers right now, a lot of the taxpayers are picking up the bill for those waste management operations. I think that's going to be really helpful. In terms of automation and the future of work, I just want to say, I support a basic income pilot. I think that was a great idea, and I don't think it should have been canceled.
Okay, Jesse.
I'm not familiar with the Venus Project. I'm sure I'll be educated on it later tonight. But certainly I would support anything that can reduce waste in our economy. We have a wonderful new group, Reimagine Co., that's opened up downtown, and their focus is a zero waste store with bulk goods, where hopefully, as word spread, the community will be able to take advantage of that, and moving forward, we'll set a model for other businesses to follow suit.
We're good? Okay. Go back to the audience for another question then.
Mr. Orser, I do enjoy your dramatic presentations. My question to you, since I'm very involved professionally in addictions and emergency services, is what is your knowledge in the reduction of infectious diseases and the resultant healthcare costs from this in-site injection site in Vancouver? What is your knowledge of that reduction?
I need an extension of time to answer that. I can't do it in 30 seconds.
So do you not have an...
I'll need an extension of time to answer that complicated question.
No, it's actually just what is your knowledge of the reduction. You said safe injection sites do not work.
We got the question. We'll see if that's fine. If you need 60 seconds, that's fine. We can give you 60. It's the best. Steve, it's twice as long as everybody else would be getting. So.
Well, okay, then I'll do it my way. I went and saw my doctor about this issue. He made it crystal clear. The only way to stop the addiction, the only way to stop this problem is to get the needles out of their arms. Mr. Helmer wants to put them in the safe injection sites. I do not. Well, you know what, that may be hard to understand, but that's a raw reality. Okay? And as far as the site in Vancouver on West Hastings, the police had to be increased for a 10-block radius, I was told, all around there because of the break-ins and everything else. I think you should most certainly support my idea to build a rehab center and a housing center. Would you support that, ma'am?
Yes, that's part of it.
I agree with your question then. Thank you very much.
Excuse me, sir. I don't mean to be rude, but you actually did not answer my question, which I will just reiterate, and then it'll be quiet.
Ask Pat for an extension of time. I'll be glad to answer.
You've asked your question,
What is your knowledge of the reduced injection and infectious disease and the resultant health thing? If you don't have knowledge, that's fine. But I asked if you did.
I have knowledge that all those needles in that jar were used outside the safe injection site, and there's probably a lot of disease that was transferred, unfortunately. Okay. As far as the clean needle situation in there and a nurse overlooking it, yes, absolutely, it stops that problem. Okay. But if they leave the place and then use these needles, there's no point.
Stephen, sorry to cut you off, but that's not time. If anyone else would like to weigh in on this particular topic, feel free.
Just very briefly, the spread of infectious diseases drops substantially when we introduce supervised consumption services. I was out in Vancouver to visit it for a transit conference. I went to Insight and visited the staff there and did a tour of the facility and talked to them. I talked to some injection drug users. I went to the Molson overdose prevention site, which is around the corner. It is a very difficult problem in Vancouver. Thousands of people are dying in BC from overdoses. Here in the City of London, 400 people have died from overdoses in the last 10 years. That's totally unacceptable.
Okay, we'll move on to our next question from the audience.
Question here.
Actually, I was. I've been living in London for nearly 30 years, and as a responsible citizen, I think I try to follow every election. One thing on top of everything politicians promise to do in every level, municipal or provincial or federal, a list of long promises to go out there, get a seat, elected, and work for people. For me personally, I really don't care about list of promises. Integrity of individuals is on top of everything when they go there in the office. One question for the three individuals I have that have been on council, even the other two candidates as well, if they could answer. And my question is, when you find corporation enter the city and start an operation illegally, not for a day, not for a month, for nearly 2 years, but you have members of council in secret communication with the leader of that operation without the rest of members of council knowing anything about it. And I have 56 pages of that document in my possession. I just would like you to answer, all of you, when you have individual constantly in communication throughout illegal operation of any cooperation coming from outside or inside, what is your take?
And just a reminder that we'll try to keep you to 30 seconds, and I apologize for the time constraint.
And I believe, Hassan, your question was to the three people who've been on council? Sure. Okay, sure. So I think that, if you have that information, well, I would suggest to anyone, a member of public, to go to the Integrity Commissioner, or if you find there's a criminal element, go to the London Police Service, and there will be that appropriate recourse. And I'm sure if an Integrity Commissioner report came with recommendations before me to implement fines or penalties to the person found in breach, I would support the Integrity Commissioner's decision, and I support our law enforcement community if they decided to move forward in enforcement of any infractions by any person, regardless if it's the person sitting right left to me, it could be Councillor Helmer or anyone else, it wouldn't matter.
Well, Hassan, thanks for coming to the meeting, and I know you're talking about me because I know you had an MFIPA request for this number of documents, so now I know who it was from. So I'll talk to anybody who is wanting to meet with me, and Uber came into the market and they really disrupted what was going on. I have always been a strong believer that we need to modernize the regulations so we can bring them into the regulatory umbrella and regulate them effectively. And of course, to figure out how to do that, we have to talk to everyone. Pat, you're going to have to give me more time. That guy says I'm corrupt. I mean, come on.
No, okay, we'll give you another 30 seconds, of course. Yeah.
Well, he's like, I'm in secret communications with the guy. They're not secret. We're talking about emails back and forth with the guy, and text messages and meetings, which I disclose.
Okay, Hassan. Okay.
So I met with people from the taxi industry, I met with people from Voyager, I met with people from Uber, I've met with people from Lyft. I will meet with anybody who wants to do business in the city of London.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. If you think I've done something illegal, you should contact the police.
Okay.
Well, thank you for that question. If you think a councillor has done something that's illegal, if it's a criminal act, yes, you do go to the police. But if it's a municipal conflict of interest complaint, that the councillor has a pecuniary interest, say for sake of argument, he's using Unicab and voting on Unicab issues, then he can lose his seat if you take in front of a judge. That's where you want to go. It's the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, and a judge will vacate the seat if he finds out there's a direct or indirect pecuniary interest. In the case of Uber, you have to use your credit card, and therefore you have a contract, therefore...
Okay, thanks, Stephen. Thank you, Stephen. Anyone else from me? Go ahead, Tricia.
I'll just speak very briefly to this. I don't think that the City Hall is doing enough of a job in terms of regulation of new businesses that are coming into the city and operating legally. I've been trying to help some people research a certain facility out on Longwoods Roads that is operating right now that does currently not have permits, and after being bounced from zoning to bylaw and back to zoning a few more times, we're still aware that nothing is happening on that property, even though they are operating against the property standards guidelines and against the current zoning for the land. Thank you.
Okay. Next question from the audience. And again, I just remind you to please keep the questions as brief and as tight as possible.
Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity. And I'd just like to touch on the BRT and possibly on what other topic here if I have time. Okay, so the BRT is a big issue. We all know that. Now, I attended the meeting in May of 2016, and I read word for word an article from Laval, Quebec, where the taxi cab industry is working with the buses, not against the buses, with the buses, in transporting people mainly to hospitals and schools. And they found a system that's beneficial. So we can solve the BRT problem without the city spending a nickel or a shovel hitting the ground. I would like this to be looked at and see if it works until a final decision is made. And on the Uber question, of course, I have to agree with my friend Hassan. I think what they've done is totally illegal. And as a matter of fact, if you go to the internet, there is an article right now that came out August 18th where the province of Quebec is going to hand out up to $45,000 for owners in the Montreal area, but this is province-wide. Drivers are included because of the damage Uber has done. Not only that, but they're also given $45 million to upgrade their equipment to compete with Uber. The total package is roughly $300 million.
Okay, so I'm not sure if I can distill a question.
I would like, well, regarding the first situation, where the cabs and the buses work
so
together
there's the BRT question.
To be explored. And maybe a pilot project could be done. And I wonder, I was at the meeting and I read that word for word. I'm sure some of you people will remember.
Okay, so I guess the question is, would you consider the Laval model that he suggested as basically a possible replacement for the BRT system?
So we just had a transit summit with LEDC and a bunch of industrial employers, and Green Taxi did come to that meeting, and we had some good discussions about how taxi or Uber or any of these other mobility providers can integrate in with transit to cover off the last mile. And I think that's an important part of the solution, especially in areas where the employees have to walk long distances from the last transit stop. And I know that the folks from Green Taxi are interested in that. It's not going to solve the issue we have in the core along the major transit routes, moving people fast. We need BRT for that.
I think the idea is worth investigating. I think Councillor Helmer should file the papers and have a special committee meeting, and you show up and tell them your ideas before we go any farther with the BRT. Maybe this is the answer. And again, it's another example of the inability to listen to the voters.
Okay.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry about that. I agree. We need to look into more options for the BRT. The current thing, like I said, it doesn't help enough people. So if there's any other ideas, they should be looked into for sure. That is what needs to be done.
Okay, next question.
Hi, this question is directly for Mo. I'm a 29-year resident of Ward 3, and I'm just wondering if you could answer to your level of commitment for the next 4 years if we were to elect you, because I understand you might be thinking of seeking a nomination for another level of government.
Wow, that's interesting news to me. I guess I haven't heard that, but I could see there's a couple of NDP people sitting beside you, and well, I'm committed to the ward. I'm committed to supporting residents. Wherever the direction that my residents decide to head me in, that's the direction I support. And I think regardless of what I do, I continue to support the community. But just a little bit disappointed that some of the people that I thought that I know before are out here today. But thank you for the question, and I'm sure I look forward to seeing you all in the campaign trails.
Okay. Next question from near the back.
Thank you. Thanks for being here this evening. I want to ask a question regarding BRT. When the BRT argument or process began, there was a call for a tunnel on Richmond Street. The tunnel on Richmond Street was first 90 million, then it was in the 100 and some odd million. Finally, because of the pushing of the public and the businesses along Richmond Row, it was discovered that that tunnel may cost over $200 million. And that's why it was scrapped. So the information that was coming out of City Hall at that time was not correct. Members of council were supporting a tunnel And they had said that there were people in that community giving improper information. So I wonder who was giving the improper information, but I want to go on. My question has to do with this. The BRT is the largest project in London's history. And many people in the community, or on City Council, have said that, and they say it with pride. It's over $500 million, and I don't know the exact amount. Normally, projects have contingencies built in to cover any cost overruns, usually about 10% if I'm correct when I was on council. 10% of 520 million is 52 million. If it's 20%, it's double that. How far are you prepared to go as members of council to support the BRT and the cost overruns? Is it 10%? Is it 20%? And where will that money come from? Because the province and the federal government will not give you any more over and above what they're going to promise you or what they're promising you. And has the cost, I'm sorry, Pat, just one more thing, has the cost of real estate that you have to purchase in order to accommodate the BRT been included in those prices? Because in the City of London over the past 2 years, real estate has risen in excess of 30%. So if the cost estimates were from 2 years ago, those cost estimates for land purchase are not going to be the cost estimates for 2 years from now or a year from now, whenever BRT is supposed to start. So how far are you as a member of council prepared to support BRT? Is it 10% over? Is it 20% over? And where will that money come from?
So I'm glad you pointed out that the longer we delay, the more expensive the project gets, because that's true. It'll never be cheaper than it is now to build BRT, and it will never be as less disruptive as it is now. It will just get more expensive and more disruptive as the city grows around where we need to build transit. The initial contingency started up around 50%, and as more and more design work has been done, we've been allocating it more specifically into the budget and lowering the contingency for certain parts. We don't have any really high-risk projects in the BRT now. The tunnel would have been a difficult one, and we probably would have tendered it differently as a result. Now we're down to around 20–25%, depending on what aspect of the project we're talking about for contingency, and I think that's appropriate for the level of design that's been done.
Thank you for the question, former Councillor Caranci, and you've always been good with the numbers. The tunnel is an exact example of this whole project. The cost overrun would have been gigantic, and it would have hit your mailbox in the form of your tax bill. And also, it will hit the apartment buildings, and it will be a rent increase. It's great that he sits here and says he's caused a rent decrease. He should be telling the apartment dwellers how much they're going to have to pay. And that's what this is really about. So cancel the BRT day one.
Anyone else? No? Okay, I think we have, Connor, do you want to answer? No. I think we have time for a couple more questions from the audience. So one here on the left.
Hi, my name's Jillian. I'm a graduate student at Western University. I've lived in London for about 10 years. This is a question for the candidates here today who are not in support of safe consumption sites, but are planning on building a rehab center. The type of rehab that is available for individuals experiencing homelessness who are adults is deplorable. Often it's many people in the same room. They're asked to go off drugs cold turkey. They're usually denied basic comforts like blankets. So I guess my question is, if you don't support safe consumption sites and you do support a rehab center, how are we going to ensure it's going to be quality care these individuals are going to get? And how are we going to pay for it if you also want to reduce property taxes?
Is that one for me?
It's for all of you.
Can I have a minute on that one?
30 seconds, Steve.
Well, then let's have 30-second questions. That's fair, isn't it?
That's the format. You have 30 seconds starting now.
You're the one running for office, right? So that restrictions.
The bottom line is the council, Victoria Hospital, the MPPs, and the MPs will sit down and address your concerns as we bring it forward to the provincial government. And they'll be the ones that pay for it. Because in the long run, it's a way to beat this thing. It's the only way. It's a lot better than a safe injection site, in my view. I want to take the needles out of their arms, not put them in, and that's it. As far as housekeeping and other things like that, it'll be a quality operation on Victoria Hospital land. That's my plan.
Thanks, Stephen.
That's a very good question. Not a lot of time. It will be expense. It will be an expense, but there's a current expense for the safe injection sites. We have to. So part of that will go over. We have to make sure, and yes, we have to make sure they are getting a good quality of life, because yes, a lot of them are homeless. So it's more you have to look into making them so that they can return to society, and in the long run, it would help taxes overall.
Thanks, Connor. Okay. Time for one more question from the audience then.
Hi, thank you. So I was all for injection sites until I did some research, and I learned that London's major problem, unlike Vancouver, is actually methamphetamine. According to Middlesex Health Unit's own research, 83% of all injection drug users are using methamphetamine. Methamphetamine makes people psychotic and causes behavior that those people themselves are not consenting to. They're not able to control, much like people who have dementia. They need to be in care that is structured and permanent, standardized, 3 months in care. I would like to know, for those of you who are supporting the injection sites, especially the ones that are being put into public housing, what is your answer to the citizens of London who are being stabbed with needles or other objects, who are currently not able to so much as offer something to an attacker to stop them, because the attacker himself does not understand his actions. We have a former hockey player who disemboweled a grandfather of 2 with no warning on Gray Street a mere 2 months ago. This was methamphetamine, and that man is now in jail forever. He's not coming out. So what is the solution to the violent crime problems that are happening to people who are consuming this drug, this drug that's taken over our streets, that is the main cause of all the problems that we have with crime downtown? What is the answer to that?
I will try. It's a difficult topic. I'll try and do it in 30 seconds. We have to do a lot of different things. One of them is enforcement, right? So even though you want to support people who are using drugs and make sure that we're reducing the harms, we still have to enforce the law on the drug traffickers, right? Because part of the problem is the supply side. So crystal meth, it is a very dangerous thing to be using, and it does cause some serious problems for people. Even in the design of supervised consumption facilities, it's difficult to design them to handle someone who's taking a stimulant versus somebody who's taking an opiate. And I think that that's got to be part of the solution. I think we need to.
Sorry.
In the long run, we have to work on the underlying causes.
Jesse.
Why are people using the drugs in the first place? Okay.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll speak to that if I can. I'll try to be 30 seconds really quick too. I wanted to kind of drift between both questions, if I may. I've had a friend in our one rehab facility, and I did indeed have to bring her blankets, which was very unfortunate, especially since she ended up leaving before the program could barely start. As I said before, I do support the harm reduction that safe injection sites can bring, but I'm not blind to the fact that it will also bring additional problems, particularly in the communities where they're existing, particularly if the social housing above the unit is filled solely with addicts. It's not going to make the problem go into other areas and other homes. It's going to remain in one spot and create more problems.
Thanks, Tricia.
I probably say this at my own peril, but I will. I believe that the methamphetamines are coming from organized crime, bikers and so forth, and I believe that the police budget should be increased and targeted in that area, and we cut off the supply. That's the first thing you do. And that's what I believe I can say in 30 seconds.
So we've obviously had a terrifically engaged and informed audience, which has provided us with lots of questions, which is exactly what we want, but it's also made things even tougher for you guys and the time restrictions. But thank you for being so disciplined. We now are going to enter into the closing statements for each candidate. You'll each have 1 minute to say whatever you'd like here at the podium. And since we started going from Mo to Connor, we're going to start here with Connor and then go in the other direction. So closing statements for 1 minute each. Yeah, sure.
Thank you again for listening to all of us. It's nice to be able to tell people what you're thinking. It gets it out there so more people can make a good informed decision, which is what London needs. They need people. They need the people that the London people want in to be their representatives. I love that I have the opportunity to even do this, but I do. Even if you don't vote for me, I want you to vote for somebody. Just so it happens. Everyone needs to vote so that someone, like I said, they all have their opinions there. Thank you.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming, and I'd like to thank you for the questions. And I'd like to thank the hosts and the other candidates. It's been a wonderful evening. It's been enlightening. And I just want you to remember one thing. With ranked ballots, you get 3 choices. You're allowed to pick just one. If you actually wish to get rid of the BRT day one, just remember 4 things. Yes, Orser, no BRT, and vote for me alone. And I will get rid of it.
Guess I'll have to move a little faster with my blog post planned on how ranked balloting actually works. I wanted to thank everyone for taking the time to come here tonight and to hear us all speak. I feel that if you want to elect someone who can and will work hard around the clock with integrity, honesty, and reliability, and always put your needs and voice above their own, and most importantly, operates without ego, then vote for me on October 22nd. My mother can pinch a penny better than anyone I know, and I believe that fiscal responsibility will be a key issue facing the next council. Thankfully, she taught me well. www.lystar.ca is my website. Let's work together, and collectively, we can expect more for Ward 4. Thanks.
Thanks very much, and thanks to the other candidates and folks for turning out tonight. Thanks for everyone who's tuning in on TV to watch. I think we made a lot of progress in Ward 4 over the last 4 years. I listed off some of the things that I'm most proud of, things that the community has come together on that we've been able to push forward so far at helmer.ca/progress. There's a lot more to be done, and I can tell you as a new councillor, there was a lot to learn. Coming in, relationships that had to be built with the staff, people I had to get to know in the community, people on council who I needed to work with. And I think I've learned a lot in the last couple of years, and I'm ready to do as much as I can over the next 4 years to deliver on all these major priorities in the city. We've heard a lot tonight about stopping things and going backwards, and I don't want to do that. We have to move forward on a lot of fronts, and we've done a lot of work to get to this point, and we've got to finish the job to get these things done. I'm in politics because I want to do the right thing and not the easy thing. I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you what I actually believe. I'm going to listen really carefully to what you say. Because the truth about politics is that people have different views. They have all kinds of different opinions. And the politicians have to be able to listen to everybody and come up and eventually decide to do what they think is the best way forward. And I've tried to be honest with people. Sometimes that has meant that people heard things that they didn't like. And there's a lot of difficult decisions. I think tonight you've got a good sense of what people are like, how they're going to make decisions, and I hope you'll vote for me and that you will rank other candidates in the ranked ballot.
Thanks, Jesse.
Well, I wanted to say thank you all for coming out tonight and for the organizers and for all those people tuning in. It's been a privilege and an honor to serve as the current councillor. Over the past 4 years, I've had the opportunity to bring hundreds of motions, and I know I worked aggressively very early on to make sure to work at a record pace, because I knew there was a lot of work that needed to be done, because the status quo and the way things have been done in politics for too long, and the fact that whether it's the simple things of combating nepotism at City Hall, or whether it's the things as ensuring that we can move our city forward to create economic opportunities and create a vibrant and inclusive community. During my 4 years of term, I was working in the Canadian Forces at the time, but I recently retired, and now I have more time to the ward and more time to the community and more time to the City of London to dedicate my time. It's been an interesting 4 years for me with a lot of learning and a lot of challenges, but for me, getting into politics wasn't because of titles or wasn't because someone just told me to do it, but because it was a matter of service and being able to give back and to do my part in our community and to make a difference. So that's what I look forward to continue doing in whatever capacity the constituents want for me. And I will, and I'm humbled all the time by recognizing that in the past, whether it's by chance the London Free Press, Best Local Politician Awards or many other accolades that come throughout, recognize that it continues to humble me and continues to push me forward to working hard for constituents every single day. Thank you.
That is all the time we have. Thank you to our candidates who obviously put a lot of work and effort into being prepared for tonight. And especially thanks to our audience who clearly has taken a lot of time out of their lives to be informed and engaged in this election, and to Aeolian Hall for hosting these events here in Old East Village. Now remember, on October 22nd, it's very simple. Just vote. And I'm Patrick Maloney. Good night.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
The way London votes has changed. This October, we'll be the first city in Canada to use ranked choice voting. Voters will have more choices with the option to rank first, second, and third choices for mayor and city councillor. Learn more at london.ca/elections.
It's just a great place to be. You get to meet lots of new people. You get to learn skills for the field of television that you can use in any kind of job. The main thing is experience in television that I can use towards going forward in the industry, and it's just, I find it's a real family.
Rematch, Canelo, Triple G, where you know you the best of the best, and you not like the rest, now you better than the rest. It's the fight of your life, it's time to reign supreme, and fulfill all your dreams, this is history. The rematches come, who gon' be the winner? There can only be one rematch.
Canelo versus Triple G2, Saturday, September 15th.
Did you know? More than 4,500 Canadians are waiting for an organ transplant right now.
Right now. 4,500.
People are dying.
And you could save a life.
90% of Canadians say they're willing to donate their organs. But only a few are registered.
So what are you waiting for?
Get registered. It's easy and it's free.
Leave a legacy.
Be a hero. Save a life.
Find out how to register today. Go to kidney.ca.
Your visit isn't really necessary.
I'll judge for myself.
I know you're an MP, Miss McPhail, but a woman has never...
I am not leaving till I do. How can such a society be called civilized? If those appalling conditions don't change, that prison will explode!
Perhaps our lone lady member is too fragile to know what is normal in a prison.
Is this normal?
Her courage would lead to the overhaul of the entire Canadian penal system. Agnes MacPhail, Canada's first woman MP.
Wild TV, now in free preview for all of September. Watch the very best hunting and fishing shows Canada has to offer, including Wild TV's original series, The Edge, and Cody Robbins' Live to Hunt, and Dean Partridge's Canadian Whitetail. Wild TV, call your local TV provider to order today.
This is Rogers TV, London. The following program contains a topic which may not be suitable for young viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey, I'm Will Graham, and welcome to Engaged in Ink. I hope you're not afraid of the dark, because today we're going to investigate things that go bump in the night. Today, we're going to venture into the supernatural to learn about the role that tattoos play in the occult, paranormal, and spiritual worlds. We're going to travel to some iconic places, meet some colorful people, and follow a paranormal hunter through his first tattoo of a supernatural legend. But first, let's have a chat with someone who has a lot of knowledge about the spiritual significance of tattoos.
My name is Heather Rolton, and I own a spiritual center here in London. And we've been open for approximately 5 years, and basically our main goal is to help people connect to their path. We have a lot of people coming in and they're saying that, you know, they're just getting into this stuff, they're not quite sure where to go, so we try and connect them with things that resonate with them, which sometimes is symbols, sometimes it's through meditation. Everyone basically walks their own path and different things resonate with them, so we just kind of help them find what's in their heart and what's going to work for them. When you are choosing a tattoo, you're definitely going to want something that resonates with you. So there's as many symbols as there are people, and actually when choosing particular symbols, especially through a tattoo, the symbols mean slightly different things to different people. So one symbol can mean two totally separate different meanings for two different people. So it's a very broad area. Symbols or amulets or talismans or anything that's kind of connecting someone or reminding someone of what that means to them. It's going to vary from person to person.
I would just be really careful with talismans. I would do a lot of research on doing talismans for protection, just because I would just be really careful with choosing. I don't know, demons can be very crafty.
What? Demons?
Hi, I'm Allison, paranormal investigator. What that is I like to help people if they think their place is haunted, or I even like to go to places that may be haunted and see if they are haunted. Some paranormal investigators will say they can get rid of them, and you can try, but like I said, it's just not fair, and it makes them mad to try to get rid of them. And you can go to a priest and you can do an exorcism and you can do a cleansing to get rid of them, and that's like going into a person's home and just getting rid of a person out of their home and saying, you're out of here. And how fair is that? So what I say, it's better to protect yourself. You got to protect yourself or you got to leave. I know it sounds like huge, but that's how bad it is. That's how big it is.
We create our own reality. We manifest what we want through the energy we put out and the energy we represent and the energy that we connect to ourselves. So if you believe, if you're getting say a pentacle, the star symbol, then that's protection for a lot of people, not necessarily everybody, but if you get a pentacle put on you, then you know you're asking for protection, or you're stating or telling yourself even that you are protected. That's what that symbol represents for you. So there can be power behind it, absolutely, especially if you believe there's power behind it.
Well, now I know what my next tattoo is going to be. And speaking of paranormal hunting, we traveled to Gallipolis, Ohio to witness this investigator as he gets his very unique first tattoo.
I am getting my first tattoo against my mother's wishes. And yeah, it is going to be a Mothman tattoo, which is surprisingly not what I thought it would be. I hope it hurts a lot, because I like pain. But also, just so you know, so nothing, completely.
Nothing? Yeah, this is before.
And yeah, and so maybe we'll do an interview. If I'm not on the floor crying, we will pick this up after it's done.
My name's Curtis Lane. I've been tattooing for 5 years, 3 years at Temple Tattoo in Gallipolis, Ohio. I'm self-taught, specialize in black and gray, but I can do just about a little bit of any style there is. And I love tattooing. It's my life. Today we're doing a Mothman tattoo for a paranormal hunter named Mike. And it's going to be awesome. Somebody's first tattoo, there's a lot of anxiety for the customer, anxiety for the tattooer because they don't know how the customer's going to sit. Like with my regular customers, I know how they're going to sit normally. Some of them do really good, some of them don't. But it's more once the person getting tattooed gets comfortable, then it's usually smooth sailing from there.
I need to start. That's nothing.
This program is brought to you by the following sponsors.
The second-hand unwind. If you're lost, you can look and you will find me. Time after time.
Jack 102.3. Playing whatever, whenever.
What brought me here was the opportunity for me to expand my skills and professional career. I have the opportunity to do everything. By being here at Rogers, I can learn all these different things that will help me be stronger. Don't be afraid, because this is where you're going to gain the most valuable experience that you can use in your future. My name is Stacey McLean, and I'm a volunteer here at Rogers TV.
Hey, did you know?
More than 4,500 Canadians are waiting for an organ transplant right now.
Right now.
4,500.
People are dying.
And you could save a life.
90% of Canadians say they're willing to donate their organs.
But only a few are registered.
So what are you waiting for?
Get registered.
It's easy and it's free.
Leave a legacy.
Be a hero.
Save a life.
Find out how to register today. Go to kidney.ca.
The following program contains a topic which may not be suitable for young viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
We're down here for a couple of things. We're checking out a haunted hotel, doing a little ghost hunting, and of course this is the site of this tragedy that the Mothman movie is based on. So we are getting a tattoo done for that.
Yeah, mainly the tourists come and get them. Every once in a while, maybe once a year or so, you'll get like a local that comes in and get a Mothman tattoo, but predominantly people that are touring and from out of town. Last year I got 2 guys from Detroit. One came in and got a moth. His girlfriend got the Mothman, and I believe there was one other person that got just like the eyes. Like it was just the Mothman eyes with like a little bit of fur kind of around it just so you could see it. I actually love doing Mothman tattoos because nobody ever gets them. You get to do them very rarely, so it's kind of something fun to do. Like you can always play around with different styles and do different things with it, and it makes it fun that you can kind of play around a little bit.
No idea who the Mothman is? Well, in case you've never seen the popular movie The Mothman Prophecies starring Richard Gere, we are going to head down to Point Pleasant, West Virginia to get a little more info about this creepy character.
My name is Jeff Walmsley. I was born and raised here in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. I'm the owner and creator of the world's only Mothman Museum.
Hi, I'm Ashley Walmsley Watts. I'm the media and marketing director for the world's only Mothman Museum in Point Pleasant, West Virginia.
A lot of people ask what exactly is Mothman. There's a lot of different theories as to what people think the Mothman is or was. But back in the mid-'60s here in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, people started seeing a strange, large bird-like creature flying around in some of the outskirts of town. Some people thought it was just a large sandhill crane or a bird of some sort, but others, especially those who encountered it, that seen it close up, thought that it was more than just a bird, that it could have been, a man-like creature with wings. They described 2 red eyes about the size of baseballs. It scared a lot of people. There were a lot of people who weren't real thrilled about encountering, this creature directly. The movie, The Mothman Prophecies, which, starred Richard Gere, was loosely based on John Keel's novel, Mothman Prophecies, which came out in 1975. The movie took a few liberties here and there. It was based more in modern day times rather than back in the 60s when it actually happened here. They skewed the numbers a little bit, like on the bridge collapse, the people who died and things like that. But it was a good representation of the story itself. And, it opened the floodgates here to Point Pleasant for people's curiosity. There are a lot of people who have seen this creature, around the world, who claim that, if you do see it, there's impending doom or danger or tragedy. Other people, here in Point Pleasant just thought, maybe that was just a coincidence, with the Silver Bridge tragedy. A lot of people thought that the bridge, after it fell, a lot of the Mothman sightings stopped, but that's not really the case. The sightings continued on. It's just everybody's attention was on the bridge disaster.
Yes, yeah, the legend of the Mothman still continues today. We've actually had an alleged sighting just back in November. A man said that he actually wasn't even from Point Pleasant. He was just driving through and had pulled over his car and taken all these photos with his cell phone of what he thought was Mothman, and then it made national news. So I have never had a sighting of the Mothman, and nor do I want one. So or the Men in Black. That's the thing that creeps me out the most. One of my favorite weird facts to tell people when they come in here is that on November 15th, 1966, when the Mothman was spotted in Point Pleasant, it was exactly 13 months to the day from when the Silver Bridge collapsed. It was December 15th, 1967, and it was the 13th eye bar that caused the bridge to collapse. So that's kind of an odd, weird thing. So.
We actually have a piece of the Silver Bridge here in the museum, a small piece. Most all of the bridge parts and stuff were probably just, disposed of after the bridge disaster and stuff. But we have a small piece of one of the beams here in the museum.
One of my favorite things that is in the Mothman Museum is the original press clippings from when the sightings were going on. So those were actually collected from my grandpa, so it's neat that we can incorporate that. Also, the Silver Bridge clippings were collected from him as well. But my favorite thing is the original police depositions from the eyewitnesses. So basically what happened is when these people had this experience, they went to the police station and they told them, and they didn't believe them. So they took them and put them in 4 separate rooms, gave them pieces of paper and a pen and said, here, write down what you see. And that's what we have on display. So, and they all match up what they said. It's just to make sure they weren't lying.
Okay, so here we are at the rep room looking at another couple great exercises to be doing with your kids. Today we're going to look at a plank, which is anti-rotation, going to work on your core. So the very first thing you can see Cashews, he's kind of doing push-ups here, but he's also working on a plank. He's got a nice flat back and his abs are nice and tight, stopping his hips from dropping down. And this is what we know as a high plank. So for the adults, a couple of versions that we use is we use an elbow plank. So Jessica's going to come to her elbows, hold up nice and high, nice flat back, and she's got her pelvis tucked underneath. Now, if we need to make this a little bit more challenging for our more advanced exercisers, we can add a little bit of instability. So what's going to happen is she's going to put her elbows up on the plank and again hold. Now her body's trying to resist all this motion. And the further she pushes her elbows out, the more challenging this exercise is going to become.
The following program contains a topic which may not be suitable for young viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
The Mothman Museum is basically a museum of a lot of different archives from when this was actually happening in the 1960s in Point Pleasant. It's just a way for us to preserve and kind of tell about the history and mystery that surrounds the whole Mothman phenomenon. It's all centrally located in one place, right next to the Mothman statue in Point Pleasant. So we've got a little bit of everything for people to check out.
Yeah, here at the Mothman Museum, we have a 24/7 Mothman cam, live cam, which is set up facing the statue. So anywhere in the world, you can get online, go to Mothman Fest or mothmanmuseum.com, check out the Moth Cam, and you can get a glimpse of the Mothman statue.
The front of the museum is actually a store where you can purchase books that has a lot of the press clippings in it that Dad actually wrote. He wrote 2 of them. And a lot of other books on the history of even just West Virginia phenomenons, you know, so. And then we've got t-shirts, stickers, buttons, pretty much you name it, it's Mothman. This is your one-stop Mothman shop. We do have temporary tattoos, actually. Let me get one. And here you go. Temporary, so it's not permanent like you guys do, but the temporary.
Yeah, we get a lot of people that come into the museum that have some really cool tattoos and body artwork and things like that. We get emails from a lot of people that send the tattoos. So yeah, there is a fascination with the Mothman tattoos. There's no doubt about it. I've seen some really good ones. I mean, all across the whole back, you know. Wow. You know, the whole back, yeah. Yeah.
Now, speaking about Mothman tattoos, didn't our paranormal hunter mention something about a haunted hotel?
We're down here for a couple of things. We're checking out a haunted hotel, doing a little ghost hunting.
You see, he did say haunted hotel. Wow, we couldn't pass up the opportunity to experience this for ourselves, so we even spent a night in the historic Low Hotel. And believe me, this hotel is as creepy as it is beautiful. This is absolutely a must experience for anyone in the area or anyone who's thinking of passing by.
Welcome to the Low Hotel. I am Mary Ruth Finley. This is the Low Hotel. We bought this hotel in 1990. This was a dream of mine. I've always loved architecture. I've always loved old buildings. I was born in the coal camps in West Virginia. My dad was a coal miner. This would have been what I dreamed of as a child. We've been here 27 years. We've had our struggles. It's just, we didn't know if we could make it. This place was just another one of those old hotels that would probably have been torn down. It did not deserve that. This is a wonderful structure. It's a part of America. It's a part of who we were at the turn of the century. We have things here that can never be replaced. We do believe there are unexplained elements here or in any place if you're attuned to, we'll just use the term ghost hunting, which is not a term that I really like, but if you come in and you feel a history and you feel a past and can take that feeling into a realm that helps you to grow or helps you in a way that, yeah, I had an experience here that I really liked. We're not about any kind of, let's say, jumping on the bandwagon of ghost hunting. But if you come here and you feel a presence and you want to discuss that with us, we're more than willing to discuss what other people have had or their experiences. But it's not our main focus. Our main focus is having people come that really enjoy what we're about our way of life here, our way of life in our small downtown, which we love, and our hotel, of course, which we love, or we wouldn't be here doing it, and our dreams and goals for this place as well as for all small towns. I think we can all take away, we can learn from each other and build on what we have, what all of us have to offer in our own small downtowns, whatever we see as our dreams and goals. And if we have our heart in the right place and we're looking at it to benefit what is good for our lives and our downtown and our communities and our, you know, all of our life, the way we live it, I think that good things always follow, and it works in a positive way.
So Mary's new noble purpose for this hotel is to move it away from a ghost hunting experience and more towards an artist retreat and co-op. She's opened a gallery attached to the hotel and furnishes the hotel with paintings from artists locally and abroad. Now when we come back, we're going to take a tour of some of these pieces by resident artist Jamie C. Sloan.
You're watching Rogers TV.
Get in there.
They can design it.
Bionic posh spice. Asymmetrical dress. Like it's good for a twirl.
They can sew it.
I'm obsessed with this look. Preach, Joe. That is bold. Is this the stuff dreams are made of or what?
But can they cut it?
I'm shaking and sweating. Okay. Yes.
On this runway, the only thing fiercer than the clothes is the competition.
We want the best of the best. This is sink or swim. This is Stitched.
New series Sunday, September 9th on Slice.
Whoa.
Sometimes, for a wish to come true, it takes a kingdom, because together is stronger. Tied tight, united we stand, in honor of one child's wish, to fuel the fire that will grant many more. Join the kingdom.
The way London votes has changed. You now have the option to rank up to 3 choices for both mayor and ward councillor. Also new, the way a winner is determined and the way we announce the results. Keep up with all the changes at london.ca/elections.
The following program contains a topic which may not be suitable for young viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
My name is Jamie C. Sloan. I'm a professional artist and painter and also an assemblage artist, and I'm the in-house resident artist here at the Historical Low Hotel in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. The story of this painting, it was originally, I titled it Contemplation, and basically it was, I heard my sister talking one day, she had gotten left on her wedding day. And so it is a picture of a woman being left on her wedding day. And my sister does have red hair, but it's not an exact, verbatim portrait of my sister. So it's just a woman that I pulled out of my imagination, but she was left on her wedding day. And so I call it contemplation. So she sits there and she's looking out the window. She says, well, things aren't over. There's a possibility of what lies ahead of me. There are greater things ahead of myself. So that was in my exhibit here at the Gallery at 409 a year ago. And a designer, Jimmy Hobbs for the hotel, had just put it here because he felt like it should go here. There needed to be a painting here. And then we had discovered later, after being interviewed by the paper, the journalist had told us the story of the ghost that was here in the parlor area, that she too was left on her wedding day. And so it was just like, wow, how did that happen? It was, obviously it was intended to happen, right? So Some people call me the ghost painter. I've heard that, you know, because we're making all these links up with other ghosts, of course, you know, there have been comments about, hey, let's move it to another room and actually do a room about it, but we're afraid to move the painting, you know, because we have a feeling that, you know, we don't want to kick up any dirt, that it belongs here, you know. I mean, what's the chances in that happening, you know? The chances are very slim, so that's where she's going to stay. I'm afraid to move her. This painting is known in the historical Low Hotel as the Ghost Lady painting, and I painted this, and it's in oil. I believe it's a 16 by 20. Where I had originally saw the woman was on my father's deathbed in hospice, and I had come in about 3 a.m. And I thought it was my stepmother on the end of the bed who was there sleeping in the same room. And I sat down to speak with her, and it slowly dissipated and just disappeared. But I never forgot that image or what it was that I saw. And it was a very androgynous figure, someone, you know, that was both male or female, or I couldn't tell the difference between, you know, if it was a woman or a man. And then so I immediately went home that evening and sketched her out and painted her the next morning. And I put it in my show here at the Gallery at 409 a year ago, and a designer, Jimmy Hobbs, once again, had thought it would be appropriate for this room because this is the room where a lot of the sightings are seen, or people have their heads or shoulders tapped on in the middle of the night, and sometimes people check out in the middle of the night because it's an unpleasant visit. And, you know, you catch them leaving the hotel in the middle of the night because of you know, the intensity of that.
What room is this?
I believe it's 311, is it? 314? This is room 314. I think that initially the decorator's intention was to enhance the element, like an element of you know, mystery and the other world, and just, we call it the ghost room. So anything associated with ghosts, we just kind of put into this room. I've never slept in here. Also in the ghost room is this death certificate here, which is I believe it's the great uncle or the uncle of Rush Finley, who is the husband of Ruth Finley, the owner of the historical Low Hotel. And this was put in here too, just because the decorator, Jimmy Hobbs, felt like it needed to be in here. It was an element of death or a transition from this world to another world. And so that signifies, you know, just the link between the two worlds, and oftentimes ghosts are caught in between those two worlds. So he just felt like that would be appropriate.
All right, let's go get one final look at Mike's Mothman tattoo.
I got my first tattoo, and it didn't hurt. And then just near the end, last 15 minutes, I was gonna cry like a little bit.
Well, that's it for our look into the supernatural. We'll catch you all next time on Engaged in Ink. And in the meantime, if you are thinking of getting tattooed for spiritual reasons, we're just going to leave you with these words of wisdom.
If you're getting a tattoo that kind of represents your spirituality, you're going to pick a tattoo that resonates with you. And it doesn't matter what the rest of the world thinks that symbol represents. It has to resonate with you.
Well, that's it for our look into the supernatural. You see, he did say haunted hotel. Well, we couldn't pass up Well, that's it for our... That sounded terrible.
Everybody knows not to drink and drive, but some people still think it's okay to take drugs and drive. Police have the authority, the ability, and the tools to determine if drivers are impaired by legal or illegal drugs. And because drug-impaired drivers can pose just as great a risk as drunk drivers, they face the same penalties, like the loss of their driver's license, a criminal record, fines, and more. A message from the RCMP, the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police, and Arrive Alive, Drive Sober.
The following program contains a topic which may not be suitable for young viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
So volunteering at Rogers has allowed me to realize my full potential, and it has given me a lot of hands-on experience. So my future goal is to become a film director, and Rogers has allowed me to see the TV side of production and has allowed me to find more passions.
This is Rogers TV, London.